Good morning. I'm Pastor Dick, and we are here at the First United Presbyterian Church in Henry. It's nice to be back. Our scripture passage this morning is from Mark chapter 1, verses 29 through 39, and it says, "As soon as they left the synagogue, they went with James and John to the home of Simon and Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they were immediately told Jesus about her. So he went to her, took her hand, and helped her up. The fever left her, and she began to wait on them. That evening after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and the demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many of them who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, 'Everybody's looking for you.' And Jesus replied, 'Let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so that I can preach there also. That is why I've come.' So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons." May God add his blessing to the reading of this, his holy word. One of the questions that I was asked of me during the interview process prior to coming here to Henry was, how can we make Henry Presbyterian Church grow? Well, allow me to share with you the story of Melba Anderson. She was, without question, one of the most amazing people that I have ever known. She was one of the most devoted Christians I have ever known. She was, without question, one of the most influential witnesses for Christ, the Christian faith, and the Christian church that I have ever known. Whoever came up with the idea of the Energizer Bunny in these TV commercials that you see on must have had Melba or someone like her in mind. She was so full of life and zest and energy. Her life was filled with purpose and a checklist of things to do. She was tireless, literally, in her love for life and unwavering in her commitment to her God, her church, and her friends. This was all the more amazing because on March 23rd of that particular year, she turned 94 years old, or I should say, 94 years young. Melba was an exemplary servant to the church. She was a teacher, a counselor, a mentor, an advocate, a leader of workshops and seminars. But most importantly, she was a caller of first-time visitors. Melba was all of those and much, much more. The woman's tea honoring her was held on a Sunday afternoon. The following Wednesday morning, she checked into the hospital for surgery. The surgery went well. We had prayer together on the Tuesday night before she went into surgery, and I reminded her that I had a funeral the next day, but I would not be able to be there with her, but I had some of my ministry friends check on her. And they did so, and they did it well, and kept me informed of the excellent process that she made. In no time, she was back from her surgery and recovery and in her hospital room. That afternoon, I tried to call Melba's room, and the line was busy. I tried to call a second time. The line was still busy. Finally, after 30 minutes or so, I got through and Melba answered the phone. She sounded great, and we celebrated her good results. And we had a prayer of thanksgiving. Then I said to Melba, I've been trying to reach you for some time, but the line has been busy. You would not believe what she said to me. She said, I know, I've been busy on the phone calling our first-time visitors. Now, think about that. Melba was 94 years old, there in the hospital, just a few hours after major surgery, and she was calling all of the people who had visited the church for the very first time that previous Sunday, and she said, I got a commitment from one family, and they're going to join our church this next Sunday. Let me tell you about the conversation that she said she had with that fellow. She reached the man in his office and told him that she was 94 years old and that she was the great-grandmother of the church. That we had a great church, and the one thing that would make it better would be if this man and his family would come back and join our church. What a neat thing she did. Melba was so grateful to God for what he had done for her in Jesus Christ, and for what he had given her, that she just couldn't sit still. Motivated daily by that attitude to God, she wanted to share God's love with everybody she met. She even wrote her own autobiography, and it was entitled, So Life Always Begins. What that means is, whatever may come our way, God will love us through it and heal us and give us a new start and a new life. God, through his love, always has a new beginning for us. Interestingly enough, Melba reminds me of Simon's mother-in-law in our text today from Mark chapter 1. Simon's mother-in-law was sick and Christ healed her. She was knocked flat with a fever, and Christ came and lifted her up and healed her. So she was so grateful for that healing, that this new lease on life, that in grateful attitude she reaches out and she serves others. Here in this biblical story, we have the three basic elements in the Christian faith: our need, God's action, and our response. We have a fevered, sin-sick soul. God heals us. And in gratitude, we serve him. This story in Mark also teaches us how powerful love is. Love has the power to heal people. Love can cure and restore and mend and make whole. And when we are made whole truly, then we want to pass that love on to others. Such is the power of love. Let me show you what I mean. First off, love has the power to heal us physically. The healing streams that lie within the body, which may be energized and activated by the power of love, are indeed potent. More so, perhaps, than we can even begin to realize. Of course, it doesn't always work like that, but studies are beginning to accumulate which show without question that love has healing power. Take, for example, the poet Elizabeth Barrett. She was an invalid for many years, unable to even lift her head from her pillow. But one day she was visited by a man by the name of Robert Browning. It was love at first sight. In just one visit, he brought her so much joy and happiness that she lifted her head up off that pillow. On his second visit, she sat up in bed. And on the third visit, are you ready for this? They eloped. And she became Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Love can heal us physically. No wonder people were healed by coming into physical contact with Jesus. He was love incarnate in the flesh. And that's what he is calling us to do today. Love made flesh. And that's what he's calling us to do now. Love personified. Love lifted out. Love lived out. That's the first point this morning. Love can heal our bodies. Love can heal physically. Secondly, love has the power to heal us emotionally. Don't you imagine that Simon's mother-in-law was sick emotionally that day as well? All those guests in her house, and she was too sick to serve them. Some years ago, I was serving another church, and a doctor and his wife came in to see me. They were burdened. They were worried. They were troubled, and it was obvious. And I could tell that they had both been crying. The doctor spoke first, and he said, "Pastor, our daughter Betty, she's 18 years old now, and we were worried sick about her. She has absolutely no self-esteem. And she has gotten a reputation around town." Well, I met with Betty, and they were right. Her self-esteem was non-existent. I called a Christian psychiatrist that I knew, and we both worked with her, but to be honest with you, we didn't make much progress. But then the most amazing thing happened. A new young man moved into town. His name was Jerry. Afraid he was a Baptist minister's son. And he fell in love with Betty, and he kept telling her that he loved her and that she was beautiful. And pretty soon she began to stand up straight. She put on a little makeup, and she fixed her eyes and combed her hair, and she brought some new clothes. And she did something else that I never had seen her do before. She smiled. She started smiling. Not long after, I performed their wedding, and then shortly thereafter I moved away to another city. A couple of years I was invited back to preach one Sunday, and as I walked back into the sanctuary, I passed the children's rooms. And I saw Jerry coming out of this one Sunday school room. He'd been teaching the fourth grade Sunday school class. And walking alongside of him was this gorgeous woman. She looked like a model. Tall and poised and radiant. And I thought, uh-oh. Oh my goodness, Jerry has left Betty and found somebody else. Boy, was I wrong. As I drew closer to them, I realized that this confident woman that had been helping Jerry teach Sunday school was none other than Betty herself. And deep down in my heart, I hummed the doxology. Betty had been transformed. She had been restored. She had been made well. She had been healed by love. Love has the power to heal physically and emotionally. Third and finally, love has the power to heal us spiritually. A well-known speaker started off his seminar by holding up a crisp $100 bill. There were over 200 people in the room that morning. The speaker asked them, "How many of you would like this $100 bill?" Hands went up all over the room. And then the speaker says, "I want to give this $100 bill to one of you, but first let me do this." And he proceeded to crumple up that $100 bill. And then he held it up and said, "Now, how many of you want it?" And the hands went up all over the place. Well, they replied, "What happens if I do this?" And he dropped that $100 bill down and he threw it on the ground and he stomped on it. And then he kind of ground it into the floor a little bit. He picked it up for all to see and he said, "Now who wants it?" Still hands went up all over the place. Then the speaker said, "My friends, you just learned a very valuable lesson. That no matter what I did to this money, you all still wanted it. Because it did not decrease in value. No matter how smudged or rumpled it became, it was still worth that $100. Many times in our lives, we get knocked around, don't we? We get dropped and we get crumpled and we get smudged and sometimes we even get ground in the dirt by the decisions that we make and the circumstances that come our way. And sometimes we feel as though we're worthless and used up and of no account. But no matter what has happened or what will happen, we will never lose our value in God's eyes. To Him, dirty or clean, crumpled or finely creased, you are still priceless to Him. Psalms 17 verse 8 states that God will always keep us as the apple of His eye. Not because we're good, but because He is good. So let me ask you something this morning. Do you feel spiritually sick this morning? Do you have a fevered soul this morning? If so, the doctor is in the house. Jesus Christ, the great physician, is here. And He can heal you. He can cure you. He can redeem you. He can save you. And then guess what happens? You can't sit still. In gratitude, you want to serve. You want to help others. You want to pass that love on to whomever you meet. Just like Melba, just like Betty, just like Simon's mother-in-law, and just like me. Thank you for being here this morning. Next week we'll do a better job of preaching and teaching and learning together here at the Henry United Presbyterian Church.